Hello, everyone. Welcome to Backyard Musings. This is Steve, and I'm in Apple Valley.
And I'm Scott, and I am in the beautiful downtown area of Baker, California.
Beautiful, huh? How many buildings are there? 10?
Yeah, well, there's most of them are fast food restaurants. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So when we talk about Russia and Ukraine, this fight here, we're scratching our heads thinking, how did it come to this? And especially now, Russia is saying that if we supply long range missiles, that we are in direct war with Putin. So it's the brink of a war with Russia. So Vladimir Putin has warned Russia would be at war with the United States and its allies if they lift restrictions on Ukraine's use of long-range Western weapons. RFK Jr. recently warned that if the U.S. arms Ukraine with long-range missiles, it would be a reckless escalation. Here's what he said, quote, Secretary Blinken, President Biden, stop it. Stop this reckless escalation. I say this not as a political partisan, but simply as a citizen of the world. Kennedy wrote this on X. How the heck did we get here? Scott, give us a history lesson.
all right. So, to justify Putin's designs on Ukraine, Putin has repeatedly referred to what Russians call the Kievan Rus. He sees this Orthodox medieval state, which centered around the contemporary Ukrainian capital, Kiev, as the common point of origin for both Ukrainians and Russians. To his mind, this means the Ukrainian people are Russian, and he believes his mission is to restore the unity of Russian lands as a precondition for Russia being a great power.
And it's not just Ukraine, it's Belarus too. It's traditionally Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, but Belarus is already on Russia's side.
Right.
So
Well, even like the Baltics, right? Would that be included in there? Because I know a lot of those people speak Russian in there.
no, it had to do with the religious split, like
Oh,
Poland and Hungary. They followed Roman Catholicism, and Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, they followed Russian Orthodox Christianity. So that's what separated, even though they're in the same area, Eastern Europe, that's what separated it. So Ukrainians, meanwhile refer to the same place as Kievan Rus, Kyivan Rus, and the cradle of their own nation. These are not Russian lands, but the lands of the Rus. The word Rus derives from the Old East Slavic word, and I'm going to spell it for you, Poycb, that's Cyrillic, which reads as Rus when you convert from Cyrillic into Roman letters. The word refers to the land of a people called Rus, the common ancestors of today's Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians.
huh. Okay. So with the arrival of Mongol troops in the mid 13th century, the land of Kievan Rus was broken up. The western and southwestern parts, which constitute most of the territory of today's Ukraine and Belarus, was divided between the Grand Duchy, is that how you pronounce that?
Duchy.
Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland. Meanwhile, the northern and northeastern parts were cut off from developments in Europe for 200 years. Throughout history, there have been Russian rulers who have believed in their mission to gather the Russian lands, the land of Rus. Others have simply used the idea to justify Russia's hegemonic ambitions.
Yeah, Russia wants to conquer like the Soviet bloc wants to bring it all back together. Um, Shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union, so this is a quick history lesson here. Shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union, in fact, it was 1991, Ukraine declares independence from Moscow. A lot of countries did that. Czech Republic, Hungary, Georgia, Lithuania, Estonia, they all declared independence, right? You're probably scratching your head saying, why did they do that if they're all Russians? Because they're not all Russians. In 2004, pro Russian candidate Viktor Yanukovych, I remember this, is declared president, but allegations of vote rigging trigger protests known as the Orange Revolution. I remember that too,
Huh.
forcing a rerun of the vote. Pro Western former Prime Minister Viktor Yushchenko is elected president. In 2005, Yushchenko takes power with promises to lead Ukraine out of the Kremlin's orbit towards NATO and the EU. This is Yushchenko, not what was the other dude's name? Yanukovych.
Oh, yeah.
Yushchenko is pro-Ukraine. Yanukovych is pro-Moscow, right? In 2005, okay, NATO and the EU. In 2008, NATO promises Ukraine it will one day join the alliance. In 2010, Yanukovych wins a presidential election. In 2013, Yanukovych's government suspends trade and association talks with the EU and opts to revive economic ties with Moscow, triggering months of mass rallies in Kyiv. In February 2014, Parliament votes to remove Yanukovych after bloodshed in the protests. Within days, armed men seized Parliament in the Ukrainian region of Crimea and raised the Russian flag. I remember that too. Moscow, Moscow, isn't that right after the election of 2013? Yeah? When we reelected Obama. Yeah. Moscow later annexes the territory. In April 2014, pro-Russian separatists in the eastern region of Donbass declare independence. Some 15,000 people have been killed since 2014 in fighting between the separatists and the Ukrainian army, according to the Kyiv government. In 2017, an association agreement between Ukraine and the EU opens markets for free trade of goods and services and visa-free travel to the EU for Ukrainians. Then we have massing of troops on the border in the spring of 2021, which is right after Biden took office. Instead of Desert Storm, it's Storm Kievan Rus, and we get the fighting today. So this is how it led up to it. So they had some guys that were Russian storm Crimea, raise the flag, and that signaled Russia to go grab it. Same with Donbass. That's a lot of fighting is happening there. So, I mean, that's pretty much where we are today.
I was going to say the fighting there that's happening now, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff.
Yeah,
but it doesn't seem to be as one-sided as it did 10 years ago, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Ukraine's taking a stance. So
what? Yeah, once they invaded Donbass, Ukraine took a stance and say no, they're just going to take everything, and Russia said they want to take everything. They want to bring Ukraine back to Russia.
Right. The more socialist people working for the state, the better, right?
Yep.
So we're not talking about allowing or not allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons, Putin said in Thursday comments to propagandist Pavel Zarubin. We're talking about deciding whether NATO countries are directly involved in the military conflict or not. This will mean that NATO countries, the U.S. and European countries, are at war with Russia, Putin said. And if this is so, then bearing in mind the change in the very essence of this conflict, we will make appropriate decisions based on the threats that will be created for us. Again, saber rattling, right?
Yeah.
The Ukrainian army does not have the ability to program long-range missiles or the satellite data necessary for their targeting, relying on NATO military personnel for those tasks.
And that's true. So he knows that NATO is helping. I mean, Germany's sending tanks. We did a segment on this. How do they keep up with the logistics when there's so many weapon systems, the Leopard tank, the Danish tank, the MiG jets, the F-15 fighters. Well, how do they keep up with the logistics? It's got to be a nightmare.
But that's behind the NATO, right? Behind NATO is rally around and help these people if they're under attack.
Yeah, that is. But Ukraine's not NATO, so this is why Putin is saying, "Hey, if you guys are not for us, you're against us," right? So Russia's, and remember, the Warsaw Pact ended when the wall fell. Everything crumbled. Soviet Union broke up. I mean, crazy. It's crazy. Russia's existing nuclear doctrine was set out in a decree by President Vladimir Putin in 2020. It states that Russia may use nuclear weapons in the event of a nuclear attack by an enemy, or if a conventional attack threatens the existence of the state. It also allows for the use in response to conventional attacks on vital facilities. For example, an early warning radar system, which could make it difficult to detect and retaliate against a nuclear strike. They probably stretch that too. Russia will make changes to its doctrine. It's going to on the use of nuclear weapons in response to what it regards as Western escalation in the war in Ukraine. State media quoted Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. That sounds familiar, as saying on Sunday. So he's a mouthpiece. He's talked about torching cities in Europe, Paris and London, and so.
Well, and to go back to that, the first part of that segment you were just reading, nobody wants to take over Russia.
No,
they just want Russia to stay out of their stuff.
Yeah,
get out of Crimea, get out of Ukraine. You know, this happened, but yeah, it's Putin, man. He's got a twisted, tilted mind.
He does. I mean, I'm pretty much. I mean, you look at the Soviet bloc; all those leaders, Stalin and Khrushchev, Andropov, they all wanted to keep the hegemony Biden, Waltz. They all wanted to keep that hegemony together. You know, the traditional Rus. But then they broke off. They even had a war with Georgia in 2010. So, you know, it's a matter of time before the tanks roll into Prague and Budapest, you know, and Kyiv. It's just a matter. They're not going to stop. The Russians are. That's why we're at the brink right now. We're at the brink because if Biden supplies those long range missiles, like RFK said, it's a further escalation. It's just escalating higher. You know.
Yep. Whoever reaches the top of the heap. Yep.
Yeah.
This is an uneasy time right now. So we got a lot happening, right? We got elections, we got open border, we got drugs coming into our country, and now we got to deal with.
We've got our own invasion. We do. Yeah. So I hope this helps our viewers understand how it came to this and give a little bit of understanding. We've had some good comments.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, we like the comments, and there's been some correction comments which we've looked at. Mostly good comments, some bad. We'll take it all. We really will. Yeah. Thanks for commenting and watching.
Yep. Good start to the week.
We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, everybody. Take care. Thanks.